All right, here we go. We'll call this committee of the whole meeting to order on November 26th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, this evening we do have public participation. Our first speaker this evening will be Susan Adams, and she would like to speak with the council about the CO2 sequestration in the Mahomet Aquifer. Susan?
Thank you. What I wanted to speak with you tonight, I'm from Atlanta, Illinois. I currently serve as the chairman of the Mahomet Aquifer Consortium. I serve as the chairman of the Illinois Water Authority Association, and our association has passed a motion that they want to protect the aquifer, and they would like to see a ban on CO2 being drilled through the aquifer or stored under the aquifer. And I also have been appointed by the governor to the Mahomet Aquifer Council, which isn't really much of a functioning council at this time. I think most of you are probably aware that ADM has had some CO2 leaks here in September and October. And then actually, they started back in 2020. And the monitoring wells that were drilled, the equipment in there started to malfunction and eventually fail. In 2023, they actually had some leaks. And at that time, they were aware of some of this that was going on, but they still continued to inject CO2. So I've left a handout with you tonight with some information, but what I'd like to point out is the EPA, which is there to protect us, did not. And ADM, which had an emergency plan, did not follow its emergency plan. So if you really want to protect your aquifer and the water and the area it supplies to, you really need to express your concern and do a ban on drilling through the Mahomet Aquifer to store CO2. ADM had its own EPA-approved emergency plan, which required them to stop injecting when their well failed and had to be plugged, and the EPA did not enforce that plan. ADM's records, second well leaked, and only after the second well leaked did they stop injecting, because at that time they probably lost both of their monitoring wells were malfunctioning, so they really didn't have monitoring wells that were functioning at the time. So stopping injection is what they had to do. ADM's the other thing that's kind of come up is before you start doing all this injecting, you really ought to identify any existing wells. And even though this is, CO2 is stored down about 6,800 feet, they're drilling through what's called a capstone, the Eau Claire Shale capstone. And if you start to get leaking above that, it can start to affect other layers. And that's exactly what has happened. Well, they have come to find out that there's actually 24 wells that have been drilled down into the area above the capstone. So once CO2 starts to leak above the capstone, CO2 when it's stored underground is buoyant. It will move horizontally, it will move vertically and move up. So there is the possibility that once it gets above the capstone, which it has, that it can move and get into some of these other wells and manage to work its way up. The other thing to keep in mind is there are a lot of health issues if CO2 gets in the water, because CO2, when combined with water, will form some carbonic acid, which is corrosive, and it will lower the pH of water, and that affects a lot of things from agricultural chemicals to anyone with a brewery or depends on water for some of their processing. So there's a lot of different things that can go wrong if you start to get CO2 in the water. And CO2 mixed with this brine that it's stored in can also start to leach heavy metals out of the formation. And those will rise with the CO2. So I encourage you to do a ban on CO2 through the aquifer and under it.
I didn't mean to
Thank you.
interrupt you. I just had a couple of questions when you're finished. So,
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
what do they inject? What are they injecting the CO2 with?
The CO2 that's being injected is 98% pure CO2. And that is coming from, right now, will be coming from ethanol plants. When you do the fermentation process, you have ethanol coming off, so they will be capturing the ethanol, which is 98% pure right now. And they're using that just because they don't have to clean it up any to do the injecting. And then they will put that under pressure. It'll be 18 to 2100 PSI, and they'll need to keep it at about 100 degrees. It's got to be at least 88 degrees because it has to be in a supercritical state. And then that will be injected underground. And part of the problem is, right now, the EPA has said chrome-13 steel will work and function, but what we've already just found out is chrome-13 steel will corrode. And that's what happened, is something the EPA said would work hasn't.
Just another quick question, if nothing.
Mr. Parrott?
How much of our natural atmosphere is CO2?
It's like 4%. And actually, if you're really concerned about climate change, methane leaking from unsealed gas and oil wells is a lot more damaging. If you go to the US EPA website, methane is 80 times more damaging. It doesn't last as long, but if you want to do something and see some impact, seal all these leaking wells and all this methane that's getting out into the atmosphere, because it's much more devastating in the short run right now and would be easier to address.
What do you think the reason is the EPA is not didn't shut them down right away? Because I know that we're impacted with our water treatment and all that from the EPA and IEPA, and so why wouldn't they shut them down right away?
I think part of it is they didn't know. ADM's well started leaking. The monitoring well started malfunctioning in 2020. In 2022, it had completely stopped malfunctioning, and it wasn't until, I think, about March or April this year that ADM actually had CO2 leak, and the EPA was down at their plant in June or July and found the leak. So I think that's kind of what brought that about. The unfortunate thing is, why didn't the EPA has not yet fined ADM for anything, and why they didn't make them stop injecting, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So what is the reason that they inject it into the ground in the first place? Is it just a byproduct that they can't get rid of easily?
Right. CO2 is in quantity is damaging to our atmosphere. I don't know that we're at that level, but it is damaging. And they're injecting it into what they call the Mount Simon Formation. Are any of you familiar with natural gas storage underground? No? Oh, okay. Yeah,
You're
there's-
giving us a lesson.
all the natural gas, majority of the natural gas is stored in the Mount Simon Formation. And that formation's about 1,500, 2,000 feet thick. But they consider it having 3 levels because there's different porosities in each of those levels. And natural gas is stored in the top part of the Mount Simon. And then when the Chicago area needs gas during the winter, they pump it up there out of these wells. CO2 is to be stored in the bottom part of the Mount Simon Formation. So that formation's been used for natural gas storage. They're now going to try and use it for CO2 storage. The problem is they're injecting it into a formation that has brine, which is water and salt. And when you add CO2 to it, you're going to get some carbonic acid with salty brine, and that's all corrosive. So you start to have issues, and not all of that, I don't think, has really been worked through. And once you inject, it takes 10,000 years for the CO2 you've injected to become inert. So monitoring it for 10, 20, or 50 years really isn't adequate.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my follow-up question is, you've mentioned storage, but do they ever plan on pulling it out of those storage wells, or are they going to leave it until it is inert?
Well, what's being done right now is and all of this is really being driven by the federal government and the Q45 tax credit. If a company is getting Q45 tax credit, they can't pull it back out. And the contracts, and I'm in an area of the Vervain sequestration area. Our contract indicates that it's for permanent storage. There are some areas in Livingston and McLean where they are looking at putting it in and pulling it back out, and that would be used for enhanced oil recovery. So, and then let me comment, I've given you a couple of handouts. Something to note is on, I think, the 3rd page, there's a listing of all the injection wells that the EPA is considering for Illinois. This is only for Illinois, and this is on the EPA website. And there's going to start to be a lot of draft permits issued, and Logan County, the first draft permit will be issued in February of next year. And then DeWitt County also has some coming up. And the last page shows you what's been injected at ADM and what all these other proposed injection wells will be injecting. So I know the ADM website is referred to as a commercial or industrial size CO2 injection. But when you start looking at all the additional wells that will be going in, there will actually be 100 times the amount of CO2 being injected over 25 years versus what's being injected right now. So we really don't have a lot of background or history. The ADM wells for CO2 Class 6 wells are the first 2 wells in the United States to exist. So this is still really kind of experimental, so let's don't experiment with our aquifer.
Right.
And let me say, Bloomington has actually passed a resolution, and so has McLean County. Ford County is looking at doing an ordinance, and I think McLean's looking at doing an ordinance, and there's a couple of others that are looking at doing an ordinance. That's not something the city can do, but the county can do.
But we can pass a resolution,
You can
which
pass
is on our agenda.
Yes, and I would encourage you to let the county know that you're concerned about it.
Mr. Reimer.
Have you talked to the county board down there about your concerns?
Yes.
how they respond to you?
Some are for and some don't, or want. I understand the economic impacts for Logan County and what you've been going through. And the money's good, but I'm not sure it qualifies for the potential damage that could be created. So they did, the county did do a letter supporting Senator Sally Thompson and Representative Howder in wanting to oppose sequestration. But that's about the farthest they've gotten. And I know that the CO2 companies have been talking to them in the past and really working on it, trying to get this done.
So the county does support Senator Turner and Representative Howder.
They did
Position.
they did a letter of support for them.
Okay.
They did do that.
And we can follow up with the county.
Yes. And you might let your legislators know and the governor know.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Ms. Adams? Okay. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for sharing this information with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak under public participation? Okay. We will start with item number 4, the allocation of remaining ARPA funds. Ms. Metelko.
All right. So I don't know if you read over this, but we have to have all of the remaining ARPA funds allocated by December 31st. I am proposing that we put the remaining amount towards the pavilion for, I would say 8th Street, but that's not a final thing, location. So we have $136,514 that haven't been spent, but 19,124 of that is still in the parks. I added that 19,000 in because if we did the pavilion, that 19,000 can work for the cost of the pavilion because it's in a park. 8th Street's technically a park. If not, the total that's remaining is $116,876. But if we do not allocate this money, it goes back.
Alderman Parrott.
Just a quick question: with interest coming from these funds, do we get to keep the interest, or do we have to give it back to the federal government?
Well, the interest, we can do whatever we want with it. So we do get to keep that.
Alderman Eimer.
How much is the pavilion again?
Yeah, we don't know yet. I mean, the last
Kind of estimate?
estimate we had was about 200,000, but with the current changes, I have not gotten a number back yet.
So we still have to come up with something.
Yeah, but if we put all of this towards it and I apply for that T-Mobile grant, we have a better chance of getting a grant because we have put a good portion to it. It shows them that we are dedicated to doing this project. So if, I apply for the T-Mobile grant and get it, that's, up to $50,000 towards it.
Ms. Rolfs, you have a question? Your microphone, please.
Are there any outstanding jobs that money will come out of that amount?
Nope. I was waiting for the demo over on Chicago Street, that $85,000 that we had set aside to be clear, and now it's clear, so that's added back into the remaining funds. So that was the last thing I was waiting on. That's why I'm so late, coming to you. I know it's only like a month for you to decide what to do with the money, but
So that 85,000 is above the 110? Or is that included in the?
we set aside $85,000 for that demo in case we had to do it, but we ended up not having to do it, so it went back into,
So that is
The freed
part
up
of
funds,
the 110 that's listed here.
yep.
So is Alderman Parrott?
So it just has to be allocated by December 31st or spent?
It has to be allocated. But here's the thing. Once you allocate it for whatever we say it's going for, it has to be spent on that. If it's not, then it gets returned. That's why I have $19,124 left in the parks. And so we've already like spoken for that, but I can add that to the remaining amount because technically a pavilion's a park in the park. So it helps my pavilion cause.
All right, thanks.
Alderman Eimer?
Yeah, Ashley, you mentioned for the pavilion, but can this money be spent on anything else? I mean,
So it has to be related to COVID. So the parks, they took a hit during COVID because everybody was outside. That's why they put it. It's in black and white in the ARPA verbiage on there about parks, and it has to. You had to have been affected by COVID, or it has to go towards helping prevent the spread of COVID.
And then the money has to be spent by December 30th, 2026?
2026.
Okay.
So everything, we have to have everything paid out by December of 2026.
Is the council okay allocating these funds toward that project?
I'm sorry.
Is the council okay allocating the funds Ms. Metalko's asking for towards the pavilion project?
Okay, so the timeline is basically by the end of this December,
Just for the allocation,
it has to be allocated,
correct?
but then we have 2 years for it to be spent.
Correct. The end of 2026, the money has to be spent. That gives Ms. Metalko time to explore the other grant options to complete the project that she's mentioned, T-Mobile and any others that come up.
Yeah, as soon as I get the okay, I would automatically apply for the T-Mobile grant.
Okay, now, is part of what we have in the fund from our general fund?
No.
No.
There's none in that, but if we,
It is all ARPA funds.
all ARPA, okay.
Yep. So really, you would be approving the allocation of ARPA funds towards this pavilion project. Can we place that on the regular agenda? Mr. Conzo?
Just point of clarification, I guess, for the city attorney, would then need to be in the form of an ordinance, is that correct?
No?
We did before.
Okay, well, when we approve the expenditure, through the appropriation, that's in the form of an ordinance. So we could amend the appropriation ordinance to reflect that, although probably a lot of this is gonna carry over into the next fiscal year. We could include it there, but I guess if it's not in the form of an ordinance to allocate this, since we're approving the expenditure of money, then what would you put it, what form would you use?
Well, the ARPA funds that we've taken previously, it's grant money from the government. I mean,
Just like the,
yeah.
just like the Chicago Street property, we didn't pass an ordinance to allocate funds for that.
Well, we put it in the appropriation ordinance, even though we're not going to use it now, but we did enable that
Were
through,
you talking about so an ordinance would have to be for the expense, correct?
right?
We're not expending the money, we're just saying we plan to. That's what the allocation is. Now, once you make that statement and say we are going to allocate, you've got to be committed to it, because come December of this year, you can't change your mind. Otherwise, we lose that money, and that is, what's that total amount, Ashley? 80 something?
For the ARPA,
What was earmarked for Chicago Street?
oh,
Was-
85,000.
85,000,
All right, it has to be spent by December of 2026.
correct.
Yeah, so that time.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we'll place item number 4 on the regular
you.
agenda. Thank you, Ashley. Okay, the next item up is item number 5, City of Lincoln scheduled meetings for calendar year 2025. Ms. Bateman.
I've listed the calendar schedule meeting for 2025. It's other than the change of a date because of a holiday. On February, we moved it to the following date because the 25th is the primary. So instead of having a meeting on the 25th of primary, we just switched it to the next day. But other than that, everything's pretty well self-explanatory.
Any questions for Ms. Bateman on the meeting schedule? Okay, place it on the regular agenda. Okay, we'll place item number 5 on the regular agenda. Next item is item number 6, the City of Lincoln 2025 holidays. Ms. Bateman.
The holidays are listed here based on the handbook. The fire department and the police union part does not follow these holidays. They have their own holidays that are listed in their union contract. The street department, union, these holidays are listed in their union contract. So they go by basically what the non-union people do for holidays. I do I'm asking, it's your choice to whatever you want to do. I'm just talking 2025 only. December 26th is a Friday, day after Christmas. And I'm asking to take away President's Day, which is February 17th, and move the holiday to be the 26th of December. So, since it's a Friday. So I'm not asking for an additional day. I'm just asking to remove a holiday and put it someplace else. Being Christmas is a Thursday, the next day, and I can't see very many people being here anyway, so as long as they've got PTO time to take. I understand that the union at the street department was asked if they would approve this, and Walt can vouch that they agreed to it. But this is only for 2025. I'm 1 year at a time.
To me, that
Ms.
sounds
Rolfs.
very logical to do that, to put that date then. So what we basically would do would take February 17th and say that is being substituted by December the 26th.
Correct.
Logical.
And all impacted individuals and departments have been talked to about it. So everybody's okay with it.
And like I said, this only affects the street department, union, and all the non-union staff that goes by this holiday.
So are we okay swapping those dates out?
So you would change then
Yeah.
for next week, you'll
Yeah.
have that date that we just talked about.
I'll fix it, yeah. A Monday. Because regularly we have Lincoln's birthday, which is February 12th, and then turn around on the 17th. So
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'll fix the sheet for next week.
All right, so place that on the regular agenda? Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item up is item number 7, resolution of the City of Lincoln in support of state action to protect the Mahomet Aquifer. Mr. Hoblet.
So I was made aware, the City of Bloomington, I think within 24 hours of its passage, I received a draft of what they passed. I thought maybe that the city would be interested in this, so I created a resolution and forwarded it off to y'all with the mayor's blessing to see as to whether or not you would like to take action on this. As you've heard in public participation, there seems to be a movement / interest in this, so I leave it upon your discretion. But there are municipalities and counties that are passing these that have expressed concern, deep concern, about the aquifer and the CO2 pipeline. So,
Comments from the council? Place this on the regular agenda?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll place item number 7 on the regular agenda for next week. Okay, next item is item number 8, the City of Lincoln tax levy. Treasurer Conzo.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you've all received copies of the information that I circulated to you. And included in that packet, or in that collection of things, are the municipal compliance reports for both the police pension plan and firefighters pension plan. As you can see, if you've read through those, that we have a long way to go to get caught up on where we need to be for those in those particular funds. As a result of that, what I've got here is tentative proposals. First of all, you know that the, if you read them, that the Consumer Price Index that Department of Revenue uses 3.4% CPI. Last year, it was 5%. So if you were to use the CPI, which is, pretty modest in and of itself, that would result in a total increase in the levy of about $55,866, not including the bond levy, which is determined separately, is already set based on the time we issued the bonds, which would be $179,130 by itself. But not including that, this would result in an increase of $55,866. What we have done in the past is given 55% of those increases to the firefighters pension fund and 45% to the police pension fund, because the firefighters pension fund is more underfunded than the police pension fund, but they are both significantly underfunded. So with that in mind, you've got those proposals in front of you. I'll give you the timeline on this, what we would do. Voting meeting on the 16th. We would have also prior to that meeting, which would be the second voting meeting of the month of December, the last one of the year unless you schedule another one. What we would do at that point would be to have a public hearing prior to the city council meeting. And so you can discuss this tonight, if you please, and discuss it further at the next committee of the whole meeting, because it won't be on the voting agenda for the upcoming meeting on December 2nd. It'll be on the agenda for the voting meeting on the 16th. Public notice of that public hearing will be published in the Courier not less than 7 days prior to that meeting, and not more than 14 days. Probably looking at December 4th to publish that in the Courier, if they can publish and turn it around that soon, and I believe they can. But in any case, it'll be a minimum of 7 days prior to the meeting on the 16th. You also see there are other possible scenarios, anywhere from 1% to 3%. Keep in mind, $55,866 isn't a great deal of money to add, but you have to start somewhere. And it's just like when you save money, it's compounded. So if you're going 3.4% on top of what we had last year, which was $1,643,124, that's how we come up with that $55,866. But you have avoided any increase for the last 3 years, so as a result of that, that base amount is a lot lower than it would be otherwise. The other thing to consider is that that's another insert that you have in there with that packet, the comparative tax levies. You see that that's gone down. The city's portion of the tax levy's gone down every year almost, going well back into almost to the beginning of the century. It was at one time, it was 14.6%. And that was right at the last year of the 90s, 1999, and it has it's gone down and came up a little bit along the way there in about 2009, but it's generally gone downhill consistently since 2011. And what you're asking for here with this tax levy, you're not, and this is, I guess, if you don't remember anything else about this, is that you're not asking for an increase in the tax rate. What you're asking for is an increase in the amount. And that amount is determined based on the value of the taxable property. For example, last year, the taxable property in the city of Lincoln was something like 186, let me pull it up, make sure I've got it right. It was, in 2022, it was 168,121,488. Last year, 2023, it was 186,531,004. So you see a difference there of a little over 18 million. So you're asking for $55,000 based on $18 million difference in taxable property. So when you leave it flat like that, you're essentially voting to reduce the tax levy rather than to maintain it. If you exceed the CPI, then you start getting into higher numbers, which you can do. You know, it's the CPI just requires truth and taxation hearing, which we have anyway. If you overdo it, then you do start to see an increase in the tax rate. But as you can see from that handout, the comparative tax levies, as you can see, that has gone down each year because the council has declined to increase it at all, or has increased it by very small amounts, and the result of that has been what you see there on a property of $100,000. You got to use something for purposes of comparison. With owner occupied, which gives them a $6,000 exemption, that city portion of the tax $268.73. If you go back, say to 1999, it was $376.55. So essentially, what you've done is reduced our tax levy, which is, admirable, I suppose, but, there's a point diminishing return with that where it does not benefit the city, does not benefit the residents of the city who expect police protection and fire protection and other city services to be maintained. You can't do that without personnel and without equipment, and you have to pay for those things. And this is a major revenue stream with which to do that.
So what is the proposed tax levy?
Well,
Is it, if we stayed the same at the 93 or the 10?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by the 93?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, which
I'm sorry.
which
I was
line are
looking,
you-
I was looking at the bottom line, which was last year,
Yeah, 9.32.
9.32, so.
Yeah, that's the total tax rate. Now, the city of Lincoln tax rate, there is at 0.98318 would be, but it would not necessarily, it would actually drop. And I'm expecting it would drop because the value of the taxable property would go up. So, and that's why this rate has come down as it has, and that's why the city portion of the total tax has come down, because as you add more property to the tax rolls and you ask for the same amount, that rate is going to drop. So it's the amount that we're asking for. We're not asking for an increase in the tax rate. We're asking for an increase in the amount, and it's even at $55,866, a very, very modest amount, and likely result still in a diminished tax rate for the city's portion, or at the very least a level rate. Keep in mind, Alderman Rolfs, too, with that, there are, in addition to new property, there are properties that increase in value too, which is why that taxable property value goes up. So it's a combination of those things. Does that answer?
Yes, it does.
Alderman Bateman, then Alderman Eimer.
No surprise where I'm going to sit on this, and I do support our pensions, but $55,000 we can find in the budget in our sleep. We recently spent $30,000 on 2 lawnmowers just because we have 2 departments that didn't want to share a lawnmower. They bought identical lawnmowers to mow city property. $55,000, we just had a national election where one party wanted to tax people and the other party said we're not, we're gonna be fiscally responsible, and we all know how that turned out. So I'm suggesting that come budgetary time, we sit down, sharpen our pencil, and we try to come up with more than $55,000 in our budget. By looking at where we're at in the budget today, as of today, we've got line items where we're at 9% and sometimes less than that, single digits on what we've used in the budget, and we're halfway through the year. So there's money in our budget to be found. There's money in our budget to be moved around. There's no reason to turn around and raise taxes on people to generate $55,000. And Mr. Conzo is easily making my point. The city's portion of your property taxes has stayed the same or gone down because everybody else has raised their taxes. Both schools just increased their levies. The Park District is in conversation of raising their levy. Why do we need to pile on people? If this was a large sum of money, it would be an easier sell to me, but it's $55,000. We can come up with that money, and we should start every year budgeting more money for those things that we need to have. And last time I heard, there was some kind of study on coming up with a payment schedule. Have we got the answers to that yet?
I spoke with the treasurer this week. We anticipate we'll probably have that sometime in December, but unless the treasurer has more information,
No,
that's where we
I've
stand.
spoken to the actuaries and 2 different actuarial firms doing this, and they do not have that yet. That's a complex thing, and what they were waiting for are the GASB reports that precede that, and then that go into also to the auditors. So there's the GASB 67, GASB 68 reports, which they now have, and based on that, they're going to try to come up with an actuarial schedule. But I can tell you, based on the municipal compliance report, which I'm sure you've read in great detail, Alderman Bateman, that it's not going to look good. It's going to show, that we're going to need to make significant contributions. That $55,000 isn't going to solve it, but we do this year after year after year after year. It's just like if you start working when you're 17 or 18 years old and you don't save any money for your retirement, and then when you're 62, you think, well, I want to retire in 7 years or 8 years, and you start then, you're going to have problems saving enough in that amount of time. And it's the same kind of thing. That $55,000 that we're asking for is not necessarily translate into an increase in people's taxes. It increases the amount that we get. The rate is gone down, regardless of what the other taxing districts do. The tax rate that the city has applied to property has gone down as a result of the increase in the values.
I just
The
think this
taxes
is a
as well.
knee-jerk reaction without all the data.
Well, you never have
Decisions
all the
should-
data. I mean,
But we've asked for data, and we don't have that data. Decisions are made on concrete evidence and data. Yes, we all admit we're behind. But why should we make a knee-jerk reaction for just $55,000 on a tax increase? And I know everybody sits over there and wants to say it's not increasing your taxes. That's funny. My phone blows up because everybody's taxes goes up. You say it doesn't increase taxes, but when you get that little yellow envelope in the mail, for some reason it's always higher, Chuck. So evidently we can say we're not raising our taxes just like the other party does, and we end up doing it anyway.
Well-
$55,000 is not a significant amount of money that we can't sit down and be a little bit more fiscally responsible and find it without raising taxes until we get all the data we need to know exactly where we have to be.
well, let me say, first of all, if they're looking at the tax bill and they're seeing it going up, it isn't because of the city's portion. City's portion, if they want to, I mean, I've got them going back to when we bought the house.
Correct, it's
Well, wait a minute. It's the other portion, so
do we have to join in?
we don't. But we don't have to go backward either, and that's what you're recommending we do, is that we go backward. The other thing about that is this information changes, which is why you say you don't have the information. Every year you've received the municipal compliance report that was in the agenda packet. Generally, that's sufficient information. These schedules that we're asking for are over and above what we normally get from the actuarial firms, from the accounting firms. We don't get them from the accounting firms because it has to be done by actuaries, not just by accountants. The municipal compliance report shows you how far behind we are. The only thing that actuarial schedule is going to show you is how much we're going to have to pay in between now and 2030 and or 2040 to get caught up. I guarantee you it will be far more than the $55,000. There isn't any possible way that by putting that $55,000 in, you're going to be overpaying. So when you say that we don't have enough information to make that decision, it's obvious to me, one of two things is obvious to me. Either you don't know how to read the municipal compliance report, or you just disregard what it says. And I don't know which it is, but in any case, it has to be one or the other.
Didn't we just earlier this year invest some of our general fund money because we have a surplus? But then we're
Well,
going
we-
to turn
not
around
because-
and we're going to turn around and ask for more money?
Not because we have a surplus, because we have a fund balance, which is still not ideal. We should have a general fund balance that meets or exceeds 12 months of expenditures. We were about halfway there. We didn't. That is not a surplus. That's a fund balance, and there's a difference between a fund balance and a surplus.
But we
And
had
I would recommend-
we had enough that you felt comfortable investing it.
Yeah, short term. I mean, I wouldn't want to invest it for 5-year or 10-year bond or something like that. Yeah, we invested it for 6-month, 9-month bonds, and we didn't invest the entire fund balance. We invested a part of it in order to generate more income to try to build that fund balance. Bottom line on that is that fund balance is still lower than where it should be. It's still about half of what it should be. It is not a surplus.
Who assesses property taxes in the county?
The county assessor's office and the township assessors.
Correct. And so if the taxes are assessed by the county and there's an
You mean the value of the property?
EAV, right?
Right, yeah.
If the EAV goes up and that results in additional tax money being collected, correct? By the county,
If the tax rates, yes, it depends on,
if the EAV goes up,
if the tax rates remain the same, then it doesn't. That's why you see most taxing districts increase that each year.
but my point is, that's out of our control.
Yeah, the value of the property.
The county assesses all that. They do all of that work, correct? And I think and you and I have talked about this. I think that's the missing piece in this conversation that I've had several times sitting up here, is not so much who's assessing the taxes. We tend to forget about that piece. This is just the money that has been collected by the county. Keep me honest. The rate increases there's like 13 taxing bodies, correct?
Something like that.
They go up based on how much money is on the table, based on how much is collected for property taxes. Is that not correct?
The amount that they have, that the county collects, is based on what you ask for and the dollar amount of what you ask for. That dollar amount that you ask for is divided into.
What happens if we don't ask for it?
If we don't ask for more money?
Does people's property taxes stay low, or do they can still go up?
Our portion of it,
That's not the question. The question is, if the city doesn't increase or ask for an increase of their portion, does the county then not take that portion away from the property tax or the property owners? Right. So they're still going to collect that tax, correct? That's where I'm trying to get to with this line of questioning.
they're going to collect based on what the other districts ask for. If every taxing district in the county,
I get, no, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I get what you're saying, but I am worried for our taxpayers that there are other taxing bodies, but this council's purview is the city tax, right? And if we don't let's say we don't raise our percentage 3.4% like you're requesting, okay? Then does that leave the door open for another taxing body to request more because we didn't ask for more?
well, they can do that anyway, though.
Right,
I mean, whether we do or whether we don't, they can do that, and they have done it.
right. So the taxes are still going to go up based on the hard work that the county does, right?
Right.
Well,
So that's
county isn't
the question.
responsible for that. The taxing districts are.
But the county sends out the tax
assessor's
bills.
office. Doesn't the assessor's office do that?
County
I
don't send out
understand,
tax bills?
Mr. Bateman, how you don't want to be a part of it. Everybody is a part of it. Everybody's taxes are gonna
See,
go
this
up
is-
every single year. The city is not raising somebody's taxes every single year. That goes through the county, through the EAV. Your taxes are gonna go up every year, my taxes are gonna go up every year, everybody's taxes are gonna go up every single year. It's just taking a portion, 3.4% of whatever is there for the city. It's not raising anybody's taxes. It's like we're getting a raise, but you don't want us to take the raise. Correct. So then what's gonna happen to that money? Then it's just gonna go back to the corporation.
Just like I sat in the high
Somebody
school
else will
and
take it.
Chester
Or
East's
somebody else will take it.
boards last year and let them say, well, we're just gonna take our portion of the taxes.
I think that's what I was trying to
Hey,
get
if you
to.
wanna vote to raise taxes, go right ahead.
You're
I'm not.
voting to raise taxes.
We don't- if they
Taxes
already
are gonna be
raised them.
You're
raised no matter
increasing
what.
Okay.
the percentage.
We're
The
voting-
money's gotta come from somewhere.
we're
Okay,
increasing
okay,
the-
before we have a back and forth, Mr. Eimer had requested to speak. Would you still like to speak?
Kind of forgot what I.
Okay.
Well, I just was gonna ask that, Chuck, how far behind are we on the pension funds
Well,
again? Do you know off the top
way
of your
behind.
head?
Yeah, you can look here, I can,
I don't
Heard
have
of
that
these.
printout in front of me.
yeah, no, that's all right. 1.5 million on each of them
So,
approximately.
3 million?
Yeah.
Yep.
And this 55,000, whatever, do you have a general idea if we did do this or whatever? You're saying that that's not even gonna catch it up. We gotta have it by 2040, right?
That's the current, yeah.
So, in your opinion, or I'm not cornering you down to numbers, but what do we need to? So, 55,000 ain't enough. What do you think has to be enough?
Well, over the course of that time, we'll know more with those schedules, but these reports give us a real good idea what we're gonna have to come up with that. It's gonna mean, minimal amounts that we ask for each year. If you increase the amount that you ask for each year, you're going to end up with, raising it that way. And the others will have to come from other sources, from, like we do now, we do transfers from the general fund. If you look in the budget, you'll see their general fund transfers. We take the portion of the PPRT, the personal property replacement tax. Most recent, we have for some time now, since we've had a utility tax, 30% of that has gone into the pensions. And then now, very recently, the state cannabis sales tax, 90% of that goes into the pensions, the other 10% goes to DARE. So we would have to continue to fund it through a combination of those things. You're not going to be able to fund it all you
Right.
could, but it wouldn't be advisable to.
In your opinion, even if the 55,000 turned to 110,000 a year, that still probably wouldn't do it by 2040, would it?
No,
We're
no,
already in-
no. But the fact that we didn't do it last year, a year before, it's all
Yeah.
it's all kind of piled up.
So
So
we have to have this done by 2040.
well, that's the current legislation, but you know how that is.
Oh, you
Well,
think-
and,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
well. so
you'll
it's-
eventually.
I'm sorry, Treasurer, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
You're
I
fine.
think if you're familiar with IMRF, which you're an IMRF recipient, I'm SCRS, what they do is they send us they send the city clerk a statement about this time of the year and says, this is how much of your payroll percentage of your payroll that you're going to pay into the IMRF to fund the pensions of the IMRF employees and future IMRF employees. And now you have the consolidated, which just happened in the last few years, consolidated downstate firemen's pension fund, downstate police pension fund. At this point, there is no mandatory contribution to that. But I think what you're going to see is going to be the same thing you have with IMRF. They're going to say, this is how much you need to send us this year, send it in, and we take it. Would have to do it on a monthly basis. If you do that, and the further behind we are, the more we're gonna have to pay in from that, and that's gonna mean you're gonna have to cut some other type of spending to do that.
Well, it sounds like we're gonna have to do more than the tax levy.
That's
then.
right,
Yeah.
that's right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I'll just end with this. Folks, we have to take care of this. Our police and fire departments are vital. They need this pension fund secured. We need to do it. I mean, a lot of us will be gone by 2040, whatever. But we have to start this ball rolling in the right direction. I mean, one way or another. I mean, Kevin actually has an idea. We have to take some out of the general fund. That's fine. But it sounds like we need to do both things almost. I mean,
And we
so-
are doing that with.
Yeah. So
Well, that's what
just need
the
to fix it.
that's what that schedule that we're getting from the actuaries will tell us is exactly how much we have to, because it takes a lot of things into consideration. The number of people that are drawing from the pension fund, our investments, how much employees contribute, what the rate of return is on investments, which fluctuates all the time. So when we get that number is a starting point. It's going to fluctuate over time. But like if you're looking at the reports that the treasurer provided, the police pension, there's 17.399 million in unfunded liability, and in the fire there is 16.441 of unfunded liability, and we're putting in on average with fire 1.52 towards that.
I did. You just created a question. Chuck, this could come out of any part of the general fund to go towards these pensions we can get, right? Is that correct? So, and this is a little bit different, but the theater deal where we're still paying into that, obviously, I mean, which nobody can control. How many more years do we have on that?
The last payment on that will be due, I think it's June 1st of 2034.
All right, so that money could be used, correct? Once we get done with that.
Yeah, what
Is that still around 180,000?
175, 176, but now that tax increment has finally caught up with that, almost. We don't have the final distribution yet from the county for this year, from last year's taxes payable this year. It was projected to be about 166,000, so.
Instead of 175.
Yeah, so we would be transferring 9,000 if we get all that 166.
So we
But
would-
when we started, it was a lot more.
Right. And so we'd have about a 6-year difference between then and 2040 that council at the time could use that to help also. I'm just trying to find any kind of solution or answer down the road. We have to fix this for these guys. I mean, that's my opinion.
That's
so.
exactly right.
Mr. Bateman.
Well, I'm going to ask the really tough question. What was the last year that the police and fire unions increased the portion they pay in for their pensions?
That's a good question. The unions don't have any control over that. That isn't part of the contract. It's part of the state statute affixes that. So
So the state
So
is
it-
asking every city to pony up a ton of money, but they're not actually asking the people who benefit from it to pony up any. I mean, when I accelerated my retirement plan, I have to accelerate the amount of money I'm putting in toward my retirement.
right.
So is that
They
not
they don't have
something
a
that can be discussed, or how? I mean,
It's about
Correct
10
me
if
if
we
I'm
can't
wrong,
think of a
Treasurer.
year.
Hey, so that people can hear only one at a time. Chief, please.
Thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, Treasurer, because you're much more knowledgeable on financial matters than I am, but that's the difference, I believe, between a pension fund and a personal retirement fund.
Yeah. But I mean, there's a statutory, fixed by statute at, is it 10, what do you pay, 10.46 now, I think, is that right?
I think it was 9.9 something last
Yeah,
time I
and
checked.
fire is a little different, I think, one of them, but they're both right in there around that 10.
but you guys
10%.
are in the decade range. Do you remember ever having? Do you remember ever that there was something brought forward where the employee's person was increased by 0.5% or 1% or anything?
No, treasurer said, when I joined on here, this was all set by statute. And then even, I think more so, the state took control since my time here. So they tell me how much comes out of my paycheck, and then they contribute their portion. And it's not a negotiable thing at the collective bargaining table.
I thought it was something where you guys discuss your portions as in what you're contributing in to increase your benefits.
No, typically, the only thing like that in a collective bargaining agreement would be like a deferred compensation program where you agree to defer some of your salary to a savings account or a different type of investment.
It's set by statute across the state, so what he pays here is the same as what, somebody in East St. Louis pays, or somebody in, anywhere else in the state.
Alderman Parrott.
Yeah, so for retirement, for state, depends on your agency and your department. Like for Wanda and I, we paid into TRS, like 9-10%-ish. And the reason our pensions aren't as fully funded is because the state didn't pay their part. And part of it, this reason is because we just haven't paid our part. The reason we're behind. We haven't done our part. The employees have done their part. The taxing bodies have not done their part, whether it's the state or local.
SERS is the same way, but IMRF is fully funded, so you're right. It's not just yours, it's other state agencies that they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
I've been sitting here long enough to remember that these kind of conversations did not happen on previous councils or when I got here, which was before the state came in and decided they were going to take it over, which is just nothing but a slush fund for them. So, we're behind, but I remember when we weren't so far behind that we had to discuss it all the time. We're now way behind because the state says we're way behind.
Well,
Well, the salaries have increased also over the years. That keeps going up, and when that goes up, then that affects the pension. So that's why we see that. Unfortunately, that is something that we are by statute supposed to do.
and that,
The
and
only thing we can do is take salaries away from them, then, no, we wouldn't do that,
I mean, the pension debt and liability is outside of this topic. It's a topic that needs addressed, which is why we're trying to get a schedule so that you, as council members, can make a decision on whether we're going to start funding it more every year through budgetary action or not. The levy, I think the levy continues to be the time of the year in which we have these conversations because a portion of the tax levy goes to pay those pensions. This isn't going to fix the pension problem. It's just making, or it's addressing that in a small portion. It's like throwing a pebble at a wall. But go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just going to say, and no one likes to raise taxes or anything to that effect. But when we get this report that shows, maybe a payment plan, that's going to take more out of our general fund, which then we're going to have less money to do other things, roads, whatever else there is. So how do we compensate those funds that we no longer have availability to because now we're trying to help pay down some of these other things? Would $55,000 make a big dent? No, to your point, Kevin, but it makes some impact, and it doesn't, probably the dollar amount per the residents here probably isn't going to be that large of an amount.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
it
agree.
probably isn't going to show any
Mr. Reimer.
at all.
And to follow up with what you said, the 55,000 ain't enough. We almost really need to double it. We've got to figure out more than 55,000. You might as well figure at least a minimum of 100,000. And I don't even know if that's going to.
I think it's going to be more like 200.
Yeah, I mean, so Whether you go to the
Well,
general fund
annually.
or the tax levy, something's gotta be done.
Yeah. It's gonna be an eye opener when we get that schedule for sure. Mr. Conzo.
Follow up a little bit on what Alderman Parrott and Alderman Eimer were talking about these funds. They're reciprocal funds, what we call reciprocal funds. I'm SCRS and there's STRS and IMRF is another one and SURS is another one. As you said, the IMRF's the only one that is fully funded, and the reason for that, as Alderman Parrott said, is because the others, the taxing units or the governmental units aren't paying into it. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. With IMRF, we don't have a choice. The city gets a statement in November saying you're going to put in, I think it was 3.9% this last year, which isn't very much, to fully fund that. It's been up in the 17% range in past years, and we didn't have any choice but to pay it. So that's why it's the only one that's fully funded and the others are not.
He just said the key thing. We don't have any choice. That's the key. We don't have a choice. We have to make these funded, fully funded, like the IMRF. You hit it right on the spot. I mean, we have to do it.
Well, and when you say to the citizens, this is a state statute, we follow state statutes, we have to do this.
I mean, this council's been doing that for the past several years. The CSO got kicked down the road for many years. Our hand was forced and we had to do it, right? That was one of the things. I mean, Fifth Street Road's been going on for 26 years or more. And we're finally getting to the point where we're getting serious about it and we're taking action. This is no different. We have to address it. We're not going to fully fund it overnight, but we're going to have to get this schedule, make some tough decisions, and figure it out. Mr. Eimer.
We have to be the council that starts it, and other councils are going to have to finish it. We have to make a stand and make it right and get it started and hope that they carry it on to 2040. And if it's not fully funded by then, it's got to be awful close. So
I think, if you're reading things in the way the legislature works in politics, it's possible that they might extend that date, but let's not bank on that. Right?
Even if they do extend it, you don't want to ever be in a position where you don't have enough money to make the pension payments because
Yep.
because you didn't fund it. And we've never been at that point, but there have been cities in this state that have been. There have been cities in other states that have. Not to get into all the, what the Illinois Constitution says and all that, but to go deeply down that path. But that is a possibility. There have been cities that they've had to go out and borrow money to be able to meet their pension obligations, and we don't want to be in that situation.
Okay. We'll talk about this at another committee of the whole. Okay. Between now and then, if you have any questions, Treasurer's office is open. Ask. Do your homework. Reach out to others. And we'll try to share what we have as we get it. Okay. Anything else on that topic? Okay. That brings us down to announcements. I've got a few announcements. First of all, Miss Bateman needs to know who, if any, is going to participate in the Christmas parade next week. So the city will have an entry. If you are interested, please get with her by the end of the week. She needs to arrange for, make sure there's enough bags and candy and all the stuff that she needs to do. The landscape waste facility, Mr. Landers, can you give everybody the details on the press release that went out?
Yeah, so with the cold temperatures coming up over the next few days, we've chosen to go back a little bit. We've moved the building out there to prepare for the fence for Illinois American Water so they can put their fence in. So currently, there's no gas hooked up to the building. So they're relying on electric heat to heat the building. And with the extremely cold temperatures that are forecasted for the next few mornings or for the next, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 days through next week, we've chosen to, after tomorrow, the landscape waste facility will be open tomorrow. The street department staff will be picking up bagged leaves tomorrow. But after tomorrow, the landscape waste facility will be closed until the following Wednesday of next week.
Mr. Reimer?
Yeah, Walt, they just pick up bags, right? They don't pick up, like if you have a garbage can out there with leaves in it, do they do that too? Or-
We will empty trash cans with leaf, yes.
Okay, I heard that and I wasn't for sure if that was true, so.
Yes, if they put their leaves in a trash can, they'll actually take the trash can and dump it in the truck.
Okay.
Okay. And then, Wes, would you mind just giving like a very brief update on Sangamon Street, the cleanup, since that's already started?
It started. It's brief.
Can you give anything else?
No, fence is up, sand's in place, 2 crews have been there today, 2 different, areas of the building are being addressed first, and, I talked to the contractor, although they didn't want to, he is, I guess we'll call it forcing his guys to take Friday off, so, but it's moving, it's.
Okay. It's good news. I don't know, why is he forcing his guys to take the day off?
Because they want to work 24/7. So
And they're doing a
basically
lot of
just
manual labor, right?
manual labor. They've got several jobs going on. They're all over the place. Many hours. They just need a break. So it's fine. I mean, they just got able to start Monday. So like I said, it takes a little time to get everything secured and mobilized. But they were there starting destruction today.
Okay, thank you. Okay, a couple other things. Huge thank you to the police department for their cooperation in the joint tasks that took place that you put the press release out on. That's good for the community, for getting weapons and drugs off the street and people off the street that make our community unsafe. So thank you to your department. And please extend that to the other departments that participated in that. Also, huge thank you to a few people. If people have been down Woodlawn, you've seen that we've got Christmas lights on Woodlawn again. Yay. But that was kind of an effort we've been working on for a couple years because we had to get new boxes up there and new wiring. Walt's crew was instrumental in that. Miss Matoko was. Charity at Streets and Alleys, she helped up with getting that done too. So thank you to everybody involved in that. A lot of work, and based on what I'm seeing online, the community is really appreciative of that. So thank you. And please tell your staff thank you, Walt. Okay, last one is more of a question than an announcement. It was presented to me, and Ms. Bateman and I have talked about it as well, about the fact that we have a meeting on December 23rd. So that is a committee of it's a COW. So the question before the council is, do you want to cancel the COW and not have it, given how close it is to the holidays? Or would you rather wait and see how things pan out and see if we have anything? Mr. Reimer?
Well, I would say yes, because I'm leaving the 22nd, take a 2-week vacation, so I won't be here.
So you're out regardless?
Yeah, I'm out, so.
Okay. Because otherwise, what that means is we won't be meeting until like mid-January, and that's a pretty long period to go with Mr. Hoblet wanting to raise his hand and say something.
Right. I mean, if you guys wanted, I know it's a 5-week month there, could meet potentially the 30th of December if you didn't want to meet the 23rd, because that's still exactly Christmas, New Year's, right?
Chuck, you and I had a conversation. How does this play into the tax levy that has to be filed?
Well, you're gonna have to either vote on that tax levy on the 16th or schedule another voting meeting.
Okay.
In the past, when we've done that, where we've scheduled another voting meeting, it's been prior to the next committee of the whole meeting. It wouldn't have to be, it could be on any day. It has to be filed, though, with the county clerk no later than the last Tuesday in December. So,
Okay.
So there's no, you can't carry it over into January.
Okay. So then it sounds like we'll go ahead and keep the 23rd on. We'll play it by ear and we'll see what's on the agenda for that meeting.
But we won't have a meeting on the 30th, because that's the 5th Monday, right?
Correct. Okay. That's all the announcements that I have. Does anybody else have an announcement that they'd like to share this evening? Chief.
First, I'd like to thank you for the recognition for our recent efforts. I'd also like to thank Sheriff Landers and Logan County Sheriff's Department and the jail for their assistance. Central Illinois Enforcement Group, obviously, they were the lead investigative agency. Our officers from Lincoln PD and Logan County Sheriff's Office are assigned there. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to state their names, but they know who they are. They led the charge on that, and they did a fantastic job. And then finally, the United States Marshal Service for their assistance that they provided us with the execution of the arrest warrants. Second subject, over this weekend, I was approached by a member of the community, a citizen of Lincoln, with concerns regarding some comments made on Facebook. It was forwarded to me because, as you all know, I wouldn't see it for myself unless somebody shared it with me. Regarding the Neighborhood Watch programs, I've been a supporter of these programs, but I want to make it clear to the citizens and for you to help me. I ask for you guys to help me make it clear to your constituents that a Neighborhood Watch program is called that for a reason. It's a watch program. Observe and report is the nature of their function. The post that I referenced earlier was regarding personal protection, concealed carry of firearms, readiness to act, and the use of force. All I want to get across to the citizens who are participating in these watch programs is don't overstep your bounds. There are laws in place for a reason, and if you participate in these programs, please keep that participation to a level of observe and report. Because if you put yourself in a situation where you create the need to use force, you will be in the wrong, not only criminally, but civilly. And I don't want to see any good people put themselves in a bad situation, especially over something like a property crime, a burglary, or a theft, and then suffer serious legal consequences on both sides of the legal system. So please, continue to be watchful over your property. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to protect your property. But use the police force for what we're designed for. We're trained specifically to deal with those situations, understand the laws that surround responding to crimes in progress. That's what we train for. That's what you pay your taxes for us to be there for. So use your phone, call 911. Don't put yourself in a bad situation that can be avoided.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, any other announcements? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Alderman Parrott made the motion to adjourn. Alderman Eimer second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Meeting is adjourned at 7:19 p.m. You as well.